Uh, there you are.
There we go.
Sorry about that, folks. I was just doing some business, and I knew you were running a little behind, so I
That's
figured
okay.
I'd take care of some other business. So, how is everybody out there?
Good, good. It's like I live in Ontario in Canada, so we're not used to the heat right now. It's like 41 every day, so I'm sure
Oh
that's
my God.
no, yeah, I'm sure that's no stranger to you in Los Angeles, but
Yeah, but you in the North Pole are seeming to have the melting summer, which is terrible for everybody, that doesn't know. What was it? I heard they had 100-degree temperature Fahrenheit at the
yeah.
North Pole, and I was like, for 2 days, I'm like, how much? 100 degree at the North freaking Pole where there's ice and the polar ice caps exist. Talk about the gosh darn sea level rising. My God, I mean, I can't imagine how that affects the polar ice cap at 100 degrees. I can't.
Well,
It's almost
well,
like I'm speaking in terms of Jules Verne. Yeah, this is really happening. It's like, what? Oh, yeah, they got forests at the North Pole. What? Forests?
yeah. Well, I mean, when you got a president that says that the whole climate change is a hoax, well, who do you listen to, right? I don't know. I mean, like, like, how do
I
you
can't say
respond to this?
anything. I feel very strongly, but I can't make my personal views known because well, it's none of anybody's business. But it's not a matter of being politically correct as much as it's being honest. I don't really want to make anybody feel uncomfortable or look at me awkwardly through a political spectrum because that's not my interest. And as my mother taught me as a young man, she said to me, it's fine and dandy to say something. It's another thing to actually tell it and say it to somebody more than once. And it's nobody's business. And she goes, first of all, nobody cares what you think. So putting it out there for people to judge and to criticize and critique, to what advantage does that serve me? I'm not a public personality. I mean, I am a public personality in a sense, but I'm not a political personality. And some people say, "Well, you're not putting your ass on the line." It's like, no, I have very clear interests that I want to respect, and that's other people's opinions.
Right.
Therefore, I don't throw my hat in the ring because it's none of my concern. Um, and it's not the public's concern what I feel. I'm not, behaving in a way that I'm trying to promote someone or anybody else's political agenda. Whatever I feel is my own business, and that's the way I kind of like to keep it.
All
People
right.
want to ask me about the paranormal, I'll answer questions away. But um, politically, no, I keep that to myself.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get in the paranormal
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Enough of the politics here.
Not that I want to stifle or censor your opinion. First of all, you're Canadian. I
Yeah.
mean, you got Justin Trudeau, who I think very highly of. But let's be honest, and I'll say this because this is across the board, universally speaking. Politics and politicians are a breed amongst themselves. And very, very, very rarely do you find somebody who's in the political business who 100% adheres to their moral compass. Now, that's just a simple way of saying nobody is uncorruptible to one degree or another. And I've seen people in politics for years, going back 50 some odd years. And if you want to go back 150 years, you can see the same thing. That's what things and how things are done. Not always to the best benefit of what people say they're going to do, but they do what's expeditious to their means to an end.
Right.
And nobody's perfect. And as people say, what's interesting to me, and this is a segue out of this, but we're talking about artificial intelligence being developed. And people say to me, what do you think? And I said, if it's developed by a human being, then that artificial intelligence will have its own personal taints, biases, prejudices, whatever you want to call them, because it's developed by a human being. And at last I checked, human beings are not perfect. No one is perfect. So you're going to have an imperfect bit of artificial intelligence that's got the capacity to outthink think a human being in a split second. Do you think that's a smart idea to empower artificial intelligence with human biases? Oh, they're not human, they don't have biases. If it's programmed by a human, who do you think and how do you think it's going to come up with its thinking?
Well, and that's like the Tesla cars that can self-drive. I mean, okay, let's say that they can self-drive. I don't even at that. I mean, if a human is making it, you we're not perfect. So how is technology going to be? I mean,
Oh,
why would you
God, no.
put your life on the line like that?
I'm not betting on it. That's the thing is people say, what do you think about election? It's like, I don't want it in my house. I said, are you kidding me? It's a terrible thing. It's a wonderful thing to have the convenience. At what costs? People seldom take into account the down the road type of theory of, well, you've accepted this. Well, play that scenario further down the road and see where that leads you. Are you happy when you get there? And people are short-sighted. I was talking to somebody about history because I'm very much into history in a sense of the boxing history, specifically one Jack Johnson, who I guess I'll show you. Let me put a light on this. This is some of my collection here.
Oh my
You
God.
can see I'm a big fan of him. And he's an interesting character in the sense that he lived in a time that was when you would say was the highlight of the Jim Crow era. There wasn't a lot of respect afforded these gentlemen who are black. And
Absolutely not.
he defied logic and the conviction of that era. And his legacy is the fact that he was pardoned by, by Donald Trump 2 years ago. I had the luck and the fortune of having Frank and Sylvester Stallone come visit my house before the pardoning ceremony. But my point is that I look back at the history of what this guy went through and shake my head and go, wow. Talk about the cards being stacked against you and all these different, roadblocks to your success. And I look around, I go, it's similar to what's going on today in a different way. We've got this burgeoning fascination with the black community and Black Lives Matter. And it's kind of like what's happening now is kind of like a repetition of what took place 50 years ago in the 60s.
100%.
The idea that this history repeats itself is where I say to people, but pay attention to what happened before because it's cyclical. Now, if you're going to put in an artificial intelligence into the equation, what do you think the dynamics are going to end up being? I mean, I love Trudeau, and he's made some interesting things that have happened there. It's just he's made some things that I wouldn't say are politically expedient, but not positive in the light of a lot of the Canadians, from what I've heard. And I've got some Canadian friends who said, he's good, but, and that's human. That's the human condition. We are never satisfied. We always want something more.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could look at Donald Trump or Justin Trudeau, and we could say, okay, well, we need that person that can do this and this, so we do. And then what happens is, then we have people say, well, no, we're not happy with this. We want this, this, and this, and that's the problem. People, it's human nature to want more and more and more, and it's unfortunate. And it's just, I mean, you get the leaders that you get, and you get what you get. I guess that's life. And
well, it's a matter that we're in America. We have this pandemic running rampant.
Oh my gosh!
And it's been mismanaged, and that has a lot to do with the fact that when you don't complete the cycle of your, as an example, your antibiotics, and you're supposed to say a 10-day course of the antibiotics, and you only end up taking 6 or 7 days, your immune system responds accordingly that the next time you need to take the antibiotics, it's not going to be as effective. Well, the same practice I guess the same holds true in the practice of what happened. We opened up too quickly, and we should have done it incrementally and met certain guidelines. And now that we spent that inconvenient period, as it's looking backwards upon, of 2.5 months of lockdown,
Yeah.
That if we would have extended it another 2 weeks and started implementing it in a much more incremental level, we would have had less of an explosion. And had people listened and basically done the simple things, as they still say, wear a mask. Don't tell me it's going to inconvenience you and it's going to make you look uncomfortably, not, happily showing your smile.
Yeah.
You can't smile when you're dead. So put the frickin' mask on. It's not in hearing some people say, it's making me breathe my carbon monoxide. It's like, excuse me. Do you know how large a carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide molecule is? It's on the atomic level. It's minuscule. I can't even put my fingers together to show you how small that is. It easily penetrates through the membrane of any type of a mask. So you're not rebreathing your carbon dioxide. Secondly, do you know how much percentage of oxygen is in the air we breathe? About 12% of the air you breathe is oxygen. Yeah. People don't know what the hell they're talking about when they make statements about, unless you're wearing a mask and you're breathing from a gosh darn oxygen tank, you're not breathing anything close to more than 12% oxygen in the air you breathe. Figure that one for a second.
And it's not, and I mean, you brought up two really good points. But another really good one is the fact that let's talk about like even the younger people. So say, I mean, someone like myself, am I going to die from it? Probably not. But it's not about us. It's not even about me or you. It's about the older people that won't be able to survive it, and then us giving it away to the people. So people who are choosing not to wear a mask, okay, is it right now? No, they're not forcing people to wear masks, at least not where I'm living. But the fact that you're not going to choose to wear a mask because whatever reason you have, it's just selfish. It's like, it's the fact that like, okay, you don't get sick, or if you do get sick, but it's the fact that, I have parents who are 160, 159. What's to say that I get it and I give it to them and then they die because I chose not to wear a mask? Not that I didn't, but it's crazy. It's crazy how selfish people can be about it. It's like, so you have to wear a mask in a public place. Go home and take it off. Like, it's not it's not hard to ask. And
well, I'll tell you this. There's a funny thing about the virus. Again, human beings, assuming, making things apparently not, trying to, how should we say, wrap their fingers around what they know about the virus. The truth about the virus is this. It's a virus. It doesn't have a brain, but it does have one thing in common with all viruses. They change, they morph. So when it comes into a young person who's asymptomatic and doesn't show signs of it, who has it, it's just like when you have HIV. You got HIV, but you don't have AIDS. But that HIV can flip a switch and turn into AIDS. My point is this. When you get the virus, it's in your body, asymptomatic or not. All that virus has to do is, it's all of a sudden, flip that switch. You're now not asymptomatic, you are symptomatic. It now is turned on and turns into your body. And here's the second thing about the virus. We don't know everything about this virus. They originally said it was a respiratory disease. Turns out it's not. People are dying from aneurysms and strokes and other types of diseases to the liver, to the lungs, as well as the lungs, I should say, to all different parts of the body, to the brain, to the heart. So the point is, we don't know half as much as we think we do. Mm-hmm. So the young kids who think that they're not going to get it, and have it basically is a ticking time bomb until it's turned on. And guess what? It could have to do with your age. It could have to do with any number of things because we don't know. And when you start to play with those kind of odds and you say, wait a second, what does it mean? Because even the people that are recovering, their body has been ravaged. All the components inside their internal organs have been ravaged. And what I'm picking up is that every one of those people's lifespan will be shortened by about 15 years to 20 years. But we don't know that now because these people are recovering now. So you come back in a few years, 10 years from now, and you watch the case studies of all the people that have recovered and how it turns out that those people's other components in their body and systems will be failing because of the ravages of coronavirus, including the asymptomatic ones. They're not showing signs of it now, but in time they will show signs of it. And it will show and has shown itself as non-discoverable as coronavirus in children. So now they found out that that coronavirus has changed because the young adults now get their own version of it that we're not searching and tracing for. See, that's what people don't understand. That test is like this. It's good for this virus. If it morphs into something else, ain't gonna find it. Oh, but it's a coronavirus. Coronavirus means it's a new virus. That's all. Means that's what it has to do with. Corona means, new in Latin, or it means crown. As we call it new, though, we refer to it as. So the fact is, the kids that are out there, we're going to get Levin's Corona party. They get it. They're going to still get sick or not sick, but in 5 years from now, they will have problems from it. And the people that are recovering have still described having difficulties like their breathing has been hampered. They find it difficult to do things. They have memory issues. I was watching it today as one of the people that's a contributor on CNN was saying, I'm now finding that I'm clumsy getting around. And he had it months ago and he's corona-free and recovered, but he's still feeling the side effects.
Yeah, it's crazy. This whole thing is just...
It's nuts.
It's crazy. It's and you've really broken it down for sure. Just one more question before we kind of get into some of the questions I have for you about your house. So do you think that it was created in a lab in Wuhan, or are we buying that story? Are we buying?
I don't buy that's constipation theory 101. They're looking for somebody to blame. And I'll tell you who the hell to blame is. The Chinese government has permitted and allowed for the past 30 years the wildlife wet market trade. And if you don't know this, SARS came from that same freaking marketplace type of a thing. And when I say marketplace, it's not like a 25-foot by 25-foot. We're talking about close to a 2,500-foot by 2,500-foot area. A huge, huge outdoor marketplace. Then I've seen the videos from China of this. And my friends that have been to China told me about it. I was like going, what? Oh yeah, you can get pangolins. There are all these different creatures, animals, wild animals kept in cages with no bottoms because it's cheap. Cheaper to keep a cage in there than have to take out the tray and clean it out. So there's stacks one on top of another, some 10 feet tall. So you might have 20 cages stacked up.
Yeah.
You got that? You might have maybe 15 cages of all different size animals, all different shapes and sizes, one on top of the other. Some of them are dead in the goddamn cage with other animals of that species rolling around trying to get out and going stir crazy because they're kept in horrendous conditions. And as that animal, or some of them are injured from fighting in combative nature because they're all crammed into these small little quarters trying to survive while they're being waited to be taken out of the cage and basically slaughtered.
Yeah.
And then the blood and the remnants are all left all over the place. It's not a clean environment. It's a disgusting pigsty of a mess. And the joke is, I saw a documentary and they said, this has only been going on for 30 years. You would have thought this was in China for thousands. I said, no, it's a brand new industry. And because it makes so much money, and I'm talking sick money, even though it's only 3%, I think they said, of the GDP, the fact that those individuals that run those companies, the money-making people that are in charge of those wet markets and the different industries that are there, the different companies, pay the government to look the other way, to allow that to continue. And because of that, you have festering boils and pustules of one animal dropping on the other animal, and then that animal is then basically taken out and consumed and harvested. And meantime, that animal is now ingested, and basically through its skin and through the droppings of the other animals on top of it contracts these diseases. In this case, it was wild bats. SARS was something else, was pig. The swine flu was from swines, from pig. See, everything goes back to these kind of things of why do we do this? And yet, if they would remove, which they did for a few months during the quarantine, they shut down the markets there. What happened? Everything in there started to spread, and then they opened it back up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the problem. We need to basically petition them to cut that the hell out and put it to an end and say, cut the crap. You see and you know where the source is. Why not put a cap in that and stop it? It's like a gushing oil well that no one cares us because it pays money. Yeah, but it's endangering the environment. The whole gosh darn world economy is going to hell. And you're sitting there worrying about a few $1 million from these bastards. Close them down and put that industry to death and stop these minor outbreaks. Because if you look back, most of these outbreaks from SARS to the swine flu come back to that gosh darn marketplace. Yes, China and America are all working on biological weapons. Yeah, but they didn't let them out. This is one of those things where one person got infected and then it spread like wildfire.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the reason.
It's
no conspiracy. It's human stupidity, arrogance, and indolence that created this. Don't look for some haymaking, oh, it's God, it's this, it's this, it's this. No, it's greed performing at its best. It has nothing to do with the gosh darn conspiracy you guys want to create because you can't accept the simplest. There's an old saying: when you get information, always look for the simplest answer. Don't try to create a big hole to do, because the bigger you make it, the more people are involved, the more likely that somebody's going to fess up and bust out and make the statement that they're going to regret later on that's going to make the news. That's the difference. Why the simplest answer usually is the truth to the core of what took place.
Yeah.
Sorry to get all into that, but
no, it's okay. I mean, you got every right to be upset. I mean, I think half of us would be. There's nothing else to say. It's they need to get their shit together and stop it.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, just to kind of transition here. So I don't think I need to really get a profile from you. I've been following you for a long time. I think honestly the first time, and this would have been a long time ago now, but the first time I actually saw anything on you, it was off the show Ghost Hunters. And this is like, I would have been maybe 16. God, it was a while back, but
14 years ago. Yeah, it was like 2006 that came out.
I think so. So yeah, I wasn't even 16 at that time, but I think I watched it when I was 16. And I think the part that I really enjoyed from that video that really got me hooked into your story about you and your house was a story about the one you were talking about, you happened to see Jay Sebring, and then that story you were talking about, and then I think the other part was the scene where they were using the K2 meter and their jaws are dropping like, fuck, are you serious? Excuse me. And they're like, oh my God, and you're just like nodding your head like, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very, as I've been told, a very different attitude. And it always surprises me when people say, do you live there? Do you live there all the time? Or do you fly in from out of town? And it's like, I'm going, yeah, I live here all the time. He goes, fly in? I said, no, I live here 24/7, 365. I said, there's nothing to living with spirits. And I try to break it down in these terms, that we're all going to pass away from this mortal coil, as Shakespeare said. And the fact that others who have passed come to visit, it shouldn't be a terrifying thing, shouldn't be a disruptive type of a thing. It should be, it might be startling. I would use words like, to me, sometimes it's startling, but that's a momentary fraction of my life. It's not like, that's film, that's TV, that's drama, that's plays, that's bullshit. I mean, pardon me, you're saying it as well, but It's not the reality of life. I mean, some people that has become their, for lack of better words, that has become their life. And some people, you know, want to live that way, want to live on the edge and always in fear. And sometimes that's where they are. That's where they're wired. Me, I was wired that way I mean, I was that way when I was a kid. I was terrified of the freaking dark. I mean, growing up in a big house, not a big house, but in a flat, in a one-story house that was, you had the bedrooms in one part of the house, and then you had the kitchen over here that was like about 40 feet away. And to me, you know, as a 5-year-old child going, it's all dark. There's a hallway. It's all dark. I used to sit and say, Mom, she literally to go from where the bedrooms were across to the hallway adjacent to where the kitchen was probably 25 feet and probably about another 20 feet. So it's like 45 feet. So my mom used to say, I said, Mom, stand here. And she goes, I'm afraid. She goes, no, she goes, you can't turn the lights on. She used to say, no, you gotta learn to conquer this fear of the dark stuff. Because if there's a power outage, she used to say, she goes, you can't do this. You know, you got to deal with it. There's nothing there that's any different when the lights are on than the lights are off. And I was like going, all right. So he said, Mom. She goes, okay. He goes, I'm here, David. And she was just, so he goes, I'm here, Mom. She goes, okay, David, I'm here. And it literally, I was just like, didn't like the dark. And then as I grew up, I had these experiences with the spirits and stuff. And I was always curious and fascinated by that. But the key moment that everything of all my fears of, like, I used to have fears of a kid, like the werewolf and the Frankenstein and the mummy and vampires and all these fears came to a screeching halt 15 years ago in 2005 on March 22nd, when my dad called me up at about 6:45 and said to me, your mother died. And at the time she was fighting pancreatic cancer, and she was going through chemotherapy and stuff and was on some heart treatments and such. And as I recall, I was like, oh my God. So I drove over to the house, which is probably about 3 miles as the crow flies from where I live, in the same mountain. Hold on 1 second. I have to go open the door for my guests.
Words.
I'll be right back. Hold that thought.
Hold that thought.
All right. So as I was saying, I drove about 10 minutes away, and I got there about 7 o'clock. And it was pitched, the area was a hillside, and the whole drive up there, I started noticing that the lights were out. And I started noticing that the street lights were out and the street lamps were out. And I said to myself, this is very strange. So I came upon my parents' house, and it was all blacked out. And I noticed a sea light that was flickering in the windows. And I'm like, turns out the second my mother died, the electricity cut. And I said, in the neighborhood? And it's like, turns out it cut in all of West Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
That gives you an idea of the kind of, and I'm not making this stuff up. It can be looked up and documented. So when I went into the house, I saw that there was a couple of candles that were lit. And I saw that the nurse was there, and I said, what happened? She goes, the electricity cut out right after your mother died. I said, what happened? And she goes, she had gone to the hospital, to the doctor to see the cardiologist because she was on this medicine. Apparently that was for pancreatic cancer. And apparently it had weakened her heart. So she said, call 911, and she was frozen like this, And I was like, oh my God. And that's the way I found her when I came into her bedroom. And I was kind of shocked. I said, what happened? She goes, and right after that, she was like, the electricity just cut. And I was like looking at her saying, that's not my mother. And I touched her skin, and I'll never forget. It was like I tried to push in on her arm as her hand was extended out and frozen, and it was solid. It was cold. It was just like a mannequin.
Right.
And I looked at her and I said, so that's death. And I thought to myself, at that one moment, at that instance, everything had just like washed away. It just all became so clear. Everything that she said to me, she used to tell me, she goes, one day I'm going to die, David, one day you're going to die. And that's just the way, and I said, she didn't believe in, she never admitted to me anything about the afterlife. And when I asked her, I said, who in the family was gifted or had these kind of abilities or knew stuff? And she said, nobody. It's like, it was dismissed. And the same with my father. And so I never got anywhere as far as any of those relatives that might have been, interest in the paranormal. But what was the sensation I felt was the fact that all of my fears, I looked at it and I said, so this is death. I said, this is it, staring me in my face in the home that I grew up in. And it was almost gothic in the sense that the whole house was illuminated by candles. I was like, this is just unreal. But what I realized was that that's it, baby. Dead is dead. Zombies, werewolves and vampires. Goodbye. Gone. Didn't exist. Fear of the dark. What? I mean, after living here for a number of years, and just as I grew up, it all diminished. The darkness thing, light in the dark. It's just turn on a flashlight. You can see. If you can adjust your eyes, you can get around. But don't be afraid of it. There's nothing that's going to manifest in the dark that's not there in the light. And people like to say, put the light in this. I said, that's religious, wonderful stuff, but it ain't the facts of the reality of the reality. And that's what I found out, because for every religious person, there's somebody else from another religion that says something different, and another person from another religion that says something different, and another person. And you know something? Who made religion? Man. Need I say more? That's the way it is. You can't apply what man thinks to nature, to the universe. We are trying to understand what happens in the cosmos and trying to figure out. That's called theoretical physics and astrophysics. We don't know. We are trying to figure it all out. But people seem to think that they can understand nature and they can control this and this and this and do this. You can theorize and speculate and create in your mind whatever makes you feel comfortable. But in reality, nature will destroy that thinking. Physics and the reality of what the physics is, what physics in the cosmos is doing and will do, will defy that. And we're always constantly learning about history in the past of what we thought we knew, and then we have to rewrite it again because we're constantly readjusting what we think we know. And that applies across the board, and even more so to the parasciences. So I kind of like look at it saying, something, as much as these people speculate and postulate and theorize about the paranormal, after 18 years of living in this environment and 3 and a half, almost 4 years building this house, I'm the only one that's got a story that rings true as far as the reality of the paranormal is, without pushing a religious agenda or a theory agenda or a book agenda. The only thing I wrote in my book, which I'm going to mention here, this book, Ghost of Cielo Drive, is the fact that it's just my story. It's my story telling you without any, this is a demon and it's got to be Los Ghost from Lucifer. And, he knocks 3 times, like, who Baggins said. And yeah. I said, the spirit knocked 3 times. You want to knock more than twice and less than 4, i.e. 3. And if I recall correctly, there was a story, and there used to be a cartoon thing called public service announcement in the 70s called Grammar Rock. and also Number Rock. I think it was Numbers Rock or something. And they basically had this 1-minute commercial about numbers. So they would talk about, and there was this one called Three, and it was called Three is a Magic Number. So contrary to what Zach Baggins portrayed the experience in this house when they heard 3 knocks, it's the devil. He's mocking the Trinity. I started to laugh and go, ah! He's mocking you, bonehead Baggins, because they knew you were going to say it. So they played it up on that. And I mean, the spirits obviously have a sense of humor. And the spirits here at the house curse. And sometimes it's not flattering, but it's just their way of being honest about who the person is. And I have 18 HD CCTV cameras throughout the house.
Yeah.
I have recorded on a number of occasions a few EVPs, and these aren't corrections, or really aren't EVPs. That stands for electronic voice phenomena.
Yep.
These are disembodied voices being recorded by the cameras, and I'll show you one of the cameras right there. Right, that's it. There it is, right there. That thing up there is a camera.
Okay.
And that camera, boy, my hair looks like crap today. I apologize for that, guys. That camera has just a super great little microphone on it, and it records the faintest of voices. I was here 3 years ago doing an investigation, and before the investigation, I decided to do a little karaoke session to loosen up. So I was turning on the camera on, I was waiting for it to go on, and I started doing the karaoke. So upon review, I was sitting there watching. I said, oh, crap, do I have to start it again? And out of the blue, we hear a voice recorded saying, effing pricks. And I sat there and I played it back after I did the video. I did the karaoke work. So I'm doing the karaoke and so I'm reviewing it. And that's where you can hear it, me saying, well, do I have to do this again? And then you can hear the voice saying, effing pricks. And I was like, I'm the only one in the house. I said, so if I'm the only one here, you said it in the plural, and you said it clear as a bell. It wasn't a muffled S. It was clearly effing pricks. So who are you referring to? I want to know. Who is it? Because I'm alone. There's no one here. Who you have an axe to grind with, please? And it's on my YouTube channel. And it was funny because people go, how come you don't get upset? He says, the spirits were talking. I got to ask them who they're talking about. Because they're pretty clear about how they know how to speak English. And we've had a bilingual disembodied voice recorded here during a seance where the man's voice was recorded on 3 digital recorders and on the camera mounted on the wall. And the handheld camera that somebody was videoing it got on the audio tracks, let it go, mija. At which point we found out this girl that was there at the event, her father had died 4 years earlier from cancer. And as she said it, I haven't been able to let go of his death, and I'm still hung up on that. So she said, that's my dad, and that's what that was about. And it's like one, oh my God, son of a. And it's amazing because you can hear it as clear as a bell. He goes, let it go, mija. And she goes, that's his voice.
Wow.
So that's the unique thing about this house is that no one's died here per se. Lisa Williams claims that there was a Native American who had an accident a couple hundred years ago, and his remains or his body and his horse's body fell down the slope of the hill and died because they broke their necks and were interred upon the earth through the years of the sediment, basically through mud flows flowing over his remains, and the horse's remain became part of the earth. I didn't tell anybody that for about 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. Lisa came here after Ghost Hunters aired, the one you're talking about, in 2006. And then she came right after the show aired, and she told me the story. I didn't tell anybody. So when Chris Fleming came back from Ghost Hunters, I brought him in there, and he said, there's a Native American and his horses here. And I was like, well, Jackie Barrett from America's Psychic Challenge, that TV show, was a friend of mine, and she came out here the first time and said the same thing. James Von Prague with Larry King Live came out here.
Yeah.
Same exact thing happened. But Von Prague was the funniest. He goes in and he's like, there's a Native American in here with his horse, and I got to get the hell out of here. Ran out like a bat out of hell. And I said, that's the fastest I've ever seen a psychic come in and fly out of here. I was like, that was like a record. He was here for like 10, maybe 30 seconds and blew out like a train. And he was like, oh, I'm liking him there. And I said, what's wrong? He goes, it's not comfortable. I laughed. I mean, what am I supposed to say? Nothing. I just found it very kind of like one, okay. And other psychics in general that weren't so acclaimed, so to speak, went in there. And remember, I didn't tell anybody this. So it's not like, during 2006 that, what was it? Before Facebook, there was that other thing with Tim or whatever. I forgot the guy's name that was on that platform that people used, MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace, yeah.
Before MySpace was that big of a deal. So social media was, so Lisa Williams isn't talking to all these people that are having a group meeting at the psychics, weekly meeting. So nobody's interacting with one another, talking about my house. So they're all pretty much in the dark from knowing what Lisa knows, and she's not publicizing it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's kind of funny is each one picked up the same thing. Then I told Zach Baggins on Ghost Adventures, and I rue the day I did, because it turned into his David Oman's house is built on native ceremonial burial grounds. And I'm like, what? Who said that? I didn't say that. I said that one Native American on horseback fell down the hillside and they died. He and his horse died, broke their necks. And through time, they were covered by mud. I said, that's one guy. And not an intentional burial. So you got a bit of a problem with that Native American ceremonial burial ground shit.
The thing is, and I don't mean to cut you off there, so obviously I know your feelings with Zach Bagans and what's going on there.
I have no feelings.
I've heard what you said about him. But my opinion about his show, I used to really like it for the longest time. It was really interesting. Some of the investigations they did were really, really cool. I think one of the original ones, they were doing one in it was like it was some kind of dance place, and I'm trying to think what it was called. But
Arizona?
I'm not sure.
Oh, Louisiana. You're talking about whatchamacallits in New Orleans, aren't you? Bloody Marys.
I think so. It was the one where the original guy that was in his group, he left. Nick. And the one where he freaks out and he runs. He's like, "Oh, stop running," or whatever. I think I can't remember which one. It was one of the original ones. That was one of my favorite. And then after that, it just got. I find the show got a little bit, and this is my opinion, but it got more ridiculous. It was like everything was all about demons. It's like, really, man? Like every single place you go to is all about demons. Come on. And it just felt more like they were pumping up more than it needed to be, like embellishing it a little bit. And I felt like they went in your house, and I felt like it was more forced.
Oh, no. My house, that episode was probably first off, my episode was probably one of their strangest locations. I won't say about the episode, but because what you don't see on the show is a lot of stuff that happened here that they didn't put in the show. And I know that happened because I saw it and they reviewed it with me. But for example, I would have to say that my house to them gave them the shit fits. In that no one died here, so it's and even though the connection to the Tate Murders being down the street from here is one thing, but on another level, they've never played with a place that was like mine, meaning that they haven't dealt with a home that has so much energy that because of the fact that it's more of a portal and an active one and a hot spot, that they underestimated it, that they treated with a lot of disregard and disrespect and disparagement, and didn't take upon themselves the advice that I gave them. And as a result, the real story behind the show is far more fascinating than the episode everyone saw. Meaning that, look, they started this, I'll play it out like this. Okay. This is what happened, the lowdown, as we all would say. They started to do the investigation at 9 o'clock. At the top of 9, I walked in the house without any cameras, walked to the top of the stairs, and basically cursed the spirits. You know, as Zach wrote in his book, I Am Haunted, in the 3.5 pages he wrote about me, he says that David treats the spirits with discontempt, with such contempt, like a parent scolding a child. What that reference was about was the fact that they were here for 4 days shooting. First day was interviews with me, and the second day was, and again, the boys don't come to the very last day of shooting. The second day was doing interviews with other people. The third day or night was shooting B-roll and the footage of the Sharon Tate reenactments of the girl walking up the driveway covered in blood. And that was on a Wednesday night, I do believe. And that night we shot that, I said to them, as they're taking these pictures, hold 1 second. All right. All right. I'm going to show you guys a picture. I'm going to see if I can pull this up from the night that they shot that reenactment, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And I don't usually do this, but I figured, why not? Let's just put this out there for you guys to see. So bear with me a second. I'm looking off camera. I'm looking at the pictures, Ghost Adventures. Here we go, Ghost Adventures.
No worries.
Let's see. No, I've got pictures. Okay. Let's see the sequence of events of pictures here. Let me go to this. I'm going to show you guys the picture that was shot of the girl. Oh, here we go. All right. I wonder how I can show this to you guys. All right. Here we go. And bear with me. I'm going to have to do a little manipulation with the light and the camera. All right. And you're going to have to guide me. Do you see this picture in front of me? In front of you guys? Can you see that? Whoops, sorry about that. All right, let me steady this camera. Yeah, you see that?
Yep.
All right, so this is the girl that's the actress walking up the driveway covered in blood. It's playing Sharon Tate pregnant. Now watch this. This is the actual sequence of photos. Do you see that picture?
Damn.
See that ball of light? There's no light behind her. There's only a light in front of her illuminating her this way, because if you have a light behind her, you won't be able to see her. But there's the light pouring right out of her stomach. And you see how blurry she is? And there's the next picture. And there's you see her clutching her pregnancy. And that's the moon upstairs, up above. And but you see this? Look at these pictures.
Wow. That's insane.
So my point is here, I'll come back to this way. My point is that something here, let me close this down, was there acting crazy that night. And I kept on feeling chills down my spine going, you know, saying, this is a stupid thing to be doing. In light of and I kept on hearing in the head, in my body, and hearing in my head and feeling my body just get chills, like saying, we're going to get back at them for this. This is total disrespect for the memory of Sharon Tate. And I said, you know something? I said to them, they asked me about the reenactment. I said, what? I said, no. I said, I wouldn't do that. I said, I don't believe that story. And they went ahead with it. So the following night at 9 o'clock, the top of 9, they're going to go on a 6-hour lockdown from 9 in the evening to 3 in the morning. And I go to the top of the stairs. And what you see in the show is not the original, not what I said originally, because there was no camera on me. I just went, right as I'm about to leave, I said, wait a second, guys, before I leave the house, I got to do something. So I walked back in, I walked to the top of the stairs and looked down the stairwell, and I said, spirits, I know you're freaking, I said, effing pissed off and furious at them. I understand that. No gripes with me. I understand the amount of disrespect that have been afforded. I said, but I do not, and I don't want you to, and I was with the most fervent force, to mess anyone up. Don't hurt anybody. I said, I don't want anybody hurt, physically harmed, mentally abused, or anything like that. I said, I am asking you, please do not hurt anybody. And I was cursing my ass off, because I was like, when I could feel like this is my watch, my house, these guys are in for a torrential rainstorm and a thunderstorm of hell with the spirits. So as I'm walking out, one of the producers says to me, he goes, "What the hell was that?" He goes, I said, "I'm just trying to protect you guys and your team for the next 6 hours." And he goes, "Oh no, that was great." He goes, "Could you do a G-rated version though?" Or no, he says, "Could you do a PG-rated version of that?" And I said, "What? Like, you think that was an act?" I said, he goes, "Can you do that again for the cameras?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. You bought the house, you got the place, whatever. I'll be happy to redo that." He goes, "Because we can't use that because what you said." He goes, "So could you do it with cleaned up version?" I said, "Yeah." So I ended up doing what you see on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
So in that way, you might have felt it was forced. It wasn't forced. I had to do it because I was basically affording them the clean version of what I had just said 2 seconds earlier.
But I
And I
meant
tried
like,
to make it as credible as possible. But their story is that after an hour and a half of being in here, Zach came upstairs and walked out of the house with no cameras around on him and stumbled to the ground in front of my right near the steps going into the landing entranceway of the house. And I ran up to him because I was outside. I wasn't spending but 2 seconds in the car. When you see me getting in my old RAV4, that's about the amount of time I spent in there for the cameras only. Then I was walking around outside the house watching what was going on, paying attention because I'm a nervous Nelly going, these guys are walking through a freaking minefield as far as I can feel. And there are going to be daggers and explosions going off all around them because what they did to set this night up is just about going to be payoff. It's like, pulling on the lever of a slot machine and getting the jackpot, but it's not the jackpot you really want. It's the one you're deserving. And so Zach comes out and falls to the ground. I run up to him and said, "Zach, you okay?" And he's like this going, "I don't know. I feel," he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "My head." And his eyes are like this, just like going, "Oh, my stomach, God, I just feel like, oh." And then rush up, the two executive producers rushed up and said, "Zach, are you okay? Zach, are you okay?" It's like, because I don't know, I feel really, really just, oh my God, my head is just, oh my God. It goes, "I need some water. I need to sit down. Oh my God, get me some," just messed up. And it's not acting because there's no camera and he's not doing it for my benefit, be assured. And he was messed. So then, half an hour later, he's composed and stuff. And that was when they sent Nick down to go do the reconnaissance on his own. And they send Nick down there. And what you don't see on the show is that Nick's down there, they edit it. So Nick was down there for about 5 minutes and he's having stuff starting to creep up, basically ramp up on him. And it starts to boil up and boil up and boil up. And he's having, issues. Well, in the back of the van parked in front of the house, I'll never forget the scene. There's Aaron and there's Jay and there's Zach. And they're watching this 20-inch flat screen monitor in the back seat of the van, and Nick is going through his meltdown. And good old Zach starts cracking the hell up and is laughing at this. And Jay is like going, goes, "I can't believe this is happening." And I'm looking at them like, what the fuck? What the And I was thinking, how much more of this do I have to endure? And watching this poor son of a bitch going through the hoops of fire that he's going through, that he's experiencing, whether he's experiencing the experience is either practical and actually happening, because they can't seem to get it on the infrared camera when he's looking through from the guest bedroom into the theater room, where he's seeing this amorphic object, this spirit moving around towards him, and he's having these feelings, or if it's all made up in his mind and they're basically toying around with his head, or second part is he's doing it to himself because he's on such the rage's edge at this point that he's prone to mental stimuli inside of his head that he's freaking out that's not really happening. I mean, it's one of those three possibilities. Doesn't matter to me. He's the poor bastard who's actually experiencing it. And as far as he's concerned, it's all that matters. He's dealing with it. And I said to Zach, I said, "Are you guys serious?" I said, "He's down there. Your friend's down there having a meltdown." I said, "What the fuck? Are you fucking serious?" I said, if you're not going to go down there, I'm going to tear this freaking contract up and be your freaking show be damned. I'm going to run down there and bail his ass out. Says, because not on my watch and not in my house is anyone going to be suffering torment that I can certainly stop. And if he's yelling for help, I'm going to go bail his ass out. I'm not going to let him sit there and drown and let him have a gosh meltdown. I said, no way, no how. I said, not happening. I said, not going to take place on my watch. And they said, all right, all right. So I'm looking at so it's like, they're all right, well, we got it. And I'm looking at the watch, and the time it started to the time they finally went down, there was about a little under 5 minutes. And I didn't voice my opinion until about 3 minutes in, because I was just in there thinking, I can't. It's just like going, I want to say something, I just want to say something, but I can't. I signed a contract. And after a certain point, I just said, something? It's cruel. This is cruel. This is bully actions. You don't do that to somebody. And if you call that person friend, you're a sadist, because you're loving the fact that he's having this happen. You're watching it and thriving on it. It's like, that's it. I can't take it anymore. I said, enough's enough. And so finally they went down there, they brought him back. And I'm like, it was just insensitive. It was cruel and insensitive and disrespectful to a friend. And you don't do that. And then I think that was like 2 hours into it. An hour later, 1 o'clock, like shortly 2 minutes after 1 o'clock, I'm outside in the front of the house. Oh yeah, let me back that up. About shortly after Nick comes upstairs, Jay Wilsey says, hey, David, come here. I said, what? He goes, listen to this. And I put the headphones on. He goes, what's that? And I said, what's what? I said, and I hear the sound of footsteps and I said, wait a second, I hear plastic crunching. And he goes, I said, where's that microphone that this is? He goes, it's at the bottom of the landing, at the bottom of the 3rd level. And he goes, why is I hear something like, doesn't make sense? I said, I said, I inadvertently put down a ghost trap. And he goes, huh? I said, well, when we replaced the carpet here, my cats, turns out, were peeing all the way on the carpet. And even though we used the rug doctor, the carpet would still smell of that rank stench of cat urine. And I said, when we pulled it up, the carpet guy said, look, he goes, you see these spots? Because that's where your cat's been peeing. And he's marked that, and he's going to continue. I said, but I used the rug doctor. He goes, rug doctor does only so much. Because once it penetrates the backing of the carpet, it goes into the sponge, padding. I said, yeah? He goes, your carpet machine only gets the top layer and doesn't get into the sponge padding. It only gets to the backing. Sponge padding has absorbed all that piece, so it's coming up, and that's why your cat keeps marking on that. He goes, next time when you put the carpet in now, he goes, put down a layer of plastic, 3 millimeter to 6 millimeter plastic sheeting across that area. That way, when the cat, if he does pee on it, it won't penetrate the plastic. It's a vapor barrier, and it won't get into the sponge padding. Then when you use rug doctor, it'll remove all the urine in the backing, and you don't have to worry about it smelling forever. So when you walk on it, you hear crunch, 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 crunch of the backing hitting the plastic, hitting the padding. And I said, so who the hell's in the house? And he goes, look, David, no one's in the house. He goes, look around. He goes, there's Zach, there's Aaron, there's Nick, there's the crew, there's the camera people. We're all up here. I'm like going, I said, see me? He goes, yeah, I mean, there's no one down in the house in that floor, let alone in the house. I'm going, I said, but we heard that. He goes, yeah, you heard the footsteps starting in the landing, walking across 6 footsteps and drifting out of sight. I said, yep. So at 1 o'clock, I hear footsteps of coming up the stairs and then coming across the hardwood floor. And I hear the door open up and I see Zach, Nick, and Aaron walking out. And I'm like, what the fuck? I said, it's 1 o'clock. He goes, nope, we're done. I said, you're done? He goes, yeah, we have enough information. We've got enough evidence. We're done. I said, you're 3 hours into your 6-hour lockdown. He said, yeah, we're done. Packed up and gone. Within about 5 to 10 minutes, it was all out of there.
Yeah.
Then they were sick for the next 3 days and 3 nights in their hotel room here in LA, because I called them I called them on Friday afternoon. I said, hey, how are you guys? Oh, the guys are sick in bed. It's like, what? Yeah, all 3 guys are sick in bed. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, they're not doing very well. For 3 days, he ended up having to stay down in LA, sick in bed. So you talk about, getting back at them. And the joke is, Zach says that I'm possessed. And now he's talking about all these things in other episodes that, he had this terrible experience that he's now revealing to the audience, which might have happened and might not have happened because he might be just pushing a publicity envelope. However, I know firsthand from my home and that episode that the shit hit the fan with them, and they could make a whole side story about the backstory about the shoot at the Oman house if he dared, but he won't because he doesn't want to bring me attention.
Yeah.
And if my contract allowed me to, I would write the whole real story behind that in a separate book, a tell-all about what really happened during that shoot, because people go, what? It's like, 6 hours my ass. That time code is all fraud. There's not at 1 o'clock, they were, it's just gone. They were out of the house at 1:02, and it was like, what? He goes, oh, we got enough evidence. We have plenty of evidence. And then the figurine that gets knocked down in the episode. And Jay Wasley reports to Zach, isn't it kind of interesting that Nick's totally fine with it, yet Zach's having a nuclear meltdown when it took place 10 seconds before he got wind of it, was notified of it. It happened 10 feet away from him in the dark. And the fact that it took place like that and he had the meltdown he did where he's having the stuttering is kind of funny because it knocked down earlier and you could hear the sound. Yet, here's what's curious. They didn't look at the footage of it being knocked down on their footage and saying, wait, why are we not hearing an acoustic signature when an object that's falling from about 8 inches down, hard PVC plastic, hitting a solid wooden object, the base, would have echoed a sound. They never looked at that when they reviewed the footage, which was kind of interesting, saying, hey, guys, why don't you review your footage and see if there's an acoustic signature? Because if there isn't, it's impossible, meaning that you could replicate dropping that thing 100 times. 100 out of 100 times, it's going to make a contact sound when it hits there. And if they're 10 feet away, they should be able to hear that sound. And the fact that I've been in my office where I am now, and that's one floor above me, and I can hear that in my office when it gets knocked over, that would have been interesting to review the footage, because if it knocks over and it stops, as it slowly drops and comes to a soft landing, that would have been really curious and interesting, because that's happened only one time before here. And this kid had his cell phone, and there were 3 of us right in front of the aquarium talking, and all of the figurines were standing up, and we were talking, and I turned to look, and I was like, oh my God, the figurine. And I said, wait a second. I've been standing 3 feet away with 3 other people. That figurine just got knocked over. I should have heard it. The woman's 12-year-old cousin, nephew was sitting there with his camera on it, and I never got the footage. He says, oh yeah, it came down quickly, and then the last inch right before it slowed down and just gently dropped. I said, I still to this day, some 10 years later, need to see that catch.
That would be pretty sweet.
That would be like amazing.
Now, like, okay, so obviously that's been a popular thing that happens. What do you know why that happens so often? What is it about? I mean, who doesn't like Beetlejuice? But come on, I mean, like, what is it about that figurine that it just seems to be like it just gets knocked over so much?
I can't answer that. And here's the thing about me. I don't hypothesize and go beyond what I know, because once I go out on a limb and start making statements of, well, I think it's this, I become an asshole. In my opinion, me trying to ascertain, people said, well, who do you think it is? I'll be honest with you, because that's the only way I can be. I won't give you the bullshit, the BS line that you want to hear, or that you think that I should say, or that you're curious. I can tell you what I know for a fact. I don't know. It's been happening so many times that I thought that, it was limited to that aquarium. I have a 90-gallon aquarium across in the other room, in the living room. Mm-hmm. And I found that I had the original first Beetlejuice figurine that my dog Reggie went to town on, because it got knocked over and from the aquarium onto the ground. He thought it was a chew toy. So he basically mauled the freaking thing, and the head of Beetlejuice became a mauled, disfigured, gnarled piece of PVC in a ball. And the body had a few places where it would nipped out the rubber and the plastic. I put that one over on the other aquarium. And I figured, all right, this is more stable. It doesn't have the extra weight on top, making it top heavy. It started getting knocked over on its own. On the other aquarium. For no reason. So it's like I have to put a camera on that one now because that's become their favorite spot. And it's like going, okay, so it's not just the aquarium. You just have a way of just knocking these things over to say we're here and it's okay and we're communicating. And that's how I say it. They're trying to communicate something that I don't have the Rosetta Stone to decipher what its meaning is. I will tell you this though. It all started one day in March of 2008. And that was 12 hours before my cat Tess, who I was very loved dearly, who was we used to call her the lady of the house cat because she was just a great cat, had died. I brought her back from the vet at 2:30. I was in the kitchen eating, and at 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, I heard this knock, this bang. I walk into the kitchen, into the den, and the figurines knocked over. Mind you, those figurines had been sitting there since October 1st of 2008. Not getting knocked over, not molested. So you got to remember from October 1st to the I forgot what day it was in March. I've got it in the book. The figurines were standing unmolested. But at 3 p.m. that happened. And then I said, there's something significant that's happened now. I thought to myself, I'm going to make a mental note of that. 12 hours later, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was woken up to the sound of my cat, Tess, hacking her lungs out. And I heard a voice say to me, it's time. And I started to just say, oh, shit. Because at 2:30 in the afternoon, after the vet had reviewed the x-ray, he said her lungs are completely obliterated. I said, what do you mean? She goes, she has cancer. Her lungs are basically non-functioning. He goes, in a few days or whatever, when she's ready to be put down, come in, make the appointment, we'll put her down. And I thought to myself, I don't ever want to experience having to put one of my animals down. I can't deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. Please don't do this to me again. I said, don't make me play God. I said that right after the doctor said that. I said, I'm not coming back and doing that. I said out loud, I thought to myself, no. I said, you play God. That's not my responsibility. I hate the idea of that, and I can't deal with that. You can't do this to me. Please don't. And at that 3 o'clock in the morning, I looked at the clock. It says 3 a.m., and she is dying on my bed. So I picked her up, and I just held her in my arms, and she took her last breaths, and she died. And then as I'm looking at the clock at 3 o'clock in the morning at 3:10, I said, oh, shit. And I thought to myself, 12 hours earlier at the stroke of 3, the figurine got knocked over. And I said, that was a sign of what was to come 12 hours later.
Wow.
And that's how I interpreted the very, 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 very first incident of the figurines getting knocked over. And at the time, there was just the one Beetlejuice, the one Gina Davis, the one Alec Baldwin, the one Smoking Man, and the one, I forgot the other character, the one Shrunken Head Man. And then I said, oh my God, that was a sign. It was a sign. Had I been able to read that at the time, I would have tried to spend the last 12 hours with Tess so much differently. And so much more like attentively to saying, this is it. I would have taken video, but it was like, I didn't know, I didn't understand. But that was the initial point when it all started happening. And it's kind of interesting because when you look it back some 12 years, you go, wow, it's like, yeah, that's why I say, I can't go beyond what I know, and I don't assume, and I don't make theoretical as predictions. But what I do and will always do is I will use the information I get when I'm looking backwards at certain things and say, okay, that's a sign of this, that's a sign of that. For example, when I saw Jay Sebring's spirit in July of 2014, when my mom was dying of pancreatic cancer 8 months before she died in March, or 7 months before she died in March, and my girlfriend was flying around in the European continent being a flight attendant, I saw his apparition. And, I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw at the foot of my bed this guy, and I didn't recognize him as Jay Sebring because I believed in all the stories and the myths that, be careful what you wear when you leave the house, because if you die wearing that, you're going to wear that for eternity, and all that crap of, when you die, how you die is how you're going to come back as a corpse and all that stuff. So I'm assuming if I'm going to see a spirit of one of the victims, it's going to be bloody and cut and, with severe, insurance case, dressed in a nightgown, like the Ghost Adventures,
Yeah.
stuff and all that stuff, And this guy appeared to me I keep on trying to remember. I remember it was a short lapelled suit, and I think it was a double-breasted. I keep on forgetting the details if it was single-breasted or double-breasted. But he was standing there, and he had kinked where I have straight hair. This guy had more kinked, coarse hair, parted on the same side, and it was definitely an old-style suit, but I didn't recognize who he was. And wait 1 second. What are you doing? You son of a gun. So, as I said, I didn't know who he was, so I didn't recognize him per se. But he was standing there with his left arm extended, with his finger pointed, and you can see here's my left, like this. And he was pointing, except, he's pointing that way and pointing towards the drive, down the driveway. And I just said, what's going on? And he had his eyes focused straight out and just kept turning from his torso, like his waist. You'd see him just turn a quarter turn down towards the driveway and then back. And he did that 3 times and vanished. And I said, what? I got up out of bed. I went upstairs and I started saying, okay, what's going on? I just saw an apparition. I wasn't like, oh my God, it's a ghost, who's going to hurt me? Because he wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just pointing. Some people might say he's pointing towards the gateway to hell, or he's pointing towards a portal. Everybody assumes. I take a step back and say, okay, what was that all about? Let's try to piece this together from what I saw and interpret what was going on. I spent the next hour upstairs trying to figure it out, and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't figure out who he was. I couldn't figure out what this was about. I thought that that it was an old relative of mine that was coming to tell me that my mom had died. I call him an emissary ghost, saying, your mom had died, or your girlfriend who's flying through Europe had died. I didn't know. So the next day I called my mom. She's fine. I was still worried about my girlfriend. I got a call from her 2 days later. She was fine. Nothing had happened. And it was just one of those things. I talked to a psychic friend of mine who said, it'll all be told, it'll all make sense to you in a few years, in due time. She goes, that's all I can tell you. And didn't say who it was. A couple months later, I'm down at the LAPD doing research on the book I'm writing, and I go through the pictures of the Tate murders, because I said I want to see if there was anything on this property, 30 some odd years earlier, that was left from the Tate murders that would make some sense to the house and the story that I'm dealing with now. And I'm flipping through pictures, and this is my second trip there. The first time I'm there, they pull out a box that's in the regular storage unit, and it says Tate La Bianca.
Damn.
It was all a storage box full of the photos from the La Bianca crime scene. So I had to go through some 250 photos of that. It was horrendous. Finally, when I got to the end, I said, well, none of these were about Tate. What the hell is this about? I can't believe this. I spent 4 hours in a locked room, small little room, a 6 foot by 8 foot room with a police officer there, making sure I don't steal any of the photographs. And I'm looking at the pictures that they've made of Lino LaBianca's stomach with this rudimentary carved W-A-R, and I could see how they did it, how they went like W, and then they had to do like this, and it's just horrendous. And it's people say, they repented for their crimes. It's like, shut the up. No, they can't. There's nothing they can do. You look at the crime scene photographs of the way these people were treated and the disgust and disparagement that their corpses were treated with. You can kiss my ass and saying otherwise. It was horrendous. It was just still burning my freaking skull. And I'm looking at these photos of Rosemary, and then with Lino, there's also the gosh darn carving knife carving fork sticking out of his belly. Unparalleled. So when I went back the second time to do the research on the Tate photos, I was like looking through and I saw this photograph, and once I said, oh my God, that's him. And the cop said, that's him. I said, oh no, buddy. And I flipped the photo and it says Jay Sebring with his natural hair. It was the exact image of the guy who I saw in my bedroom 6 months earlier, or a few months earlier.
Like, so when you saw this apparition, did it look like a person in your room, or was it more like you kind of had an idea, this is just a spirit? Like,
All
at
right,
first,
I'll tell you, I'll describe it like this, since I forgot to mention that detail, and I was,
like
pardon me for
the
doing
reason why
so.
I'm asking you is just
Sure.
because I've had the same experiences in my own home, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I appreciate you saying, well, it's critical to the story, because what I'm about to say and where I came up with my feelings and thoughts about the paranormal is based upon that which I saw. And he didn't have any gunshot wounds. So again, he was fine. He was totally perfectly normal. He was dressed in this suit with the short lapels. I remember 4 buttons down. And the room was dark, but he was lit up. And what I mean by lit up is, in going back to when I took an art class years ago, this teacher said the first thing you're going to remember is where is the source of light or illumination? Is the illumination coming from above? Is it coming from below? Is it coming from the sides? Because that's how you create the shading that you require for natural, realistic drawing and painting. This guy was the source of the light. It's not like there was a spotlight on him, and like you saw the pictures where she's illuminated from the front and you see the flesh tones. His whole being was a radiant energy type of a thing. He looked like you and I, full size, but as I said before, was in shades of gray. His hair color was a charcoal black. His skin had this, it was he looked like a human being. But you remember in Star Trek, the TV show, the second, with the Picard, that what's his face had bluish tin skin, the android, or the guy that played the Spock character. I forgot the
Oh,
character's
okay,
name.
yeah.
You remember he had that blue colored skin?
Yep.
That color skin was the skin that I saw in this guy. Was this blue gray hueish skin,
Okay.
right? The suit was more of a dark blue gray. The shirt was a powder blue gray. The tie was a dark color blue gray. And as I said, it was just strange because I'm looking and saying, okay. And I knew it was a ghost. It was completely obvious because the alarms was on and the sensors were on. So there was nothing that was tripped. And he just appeared there. Like I said, he was with his arm out, turning his torso. And it was amazing. I wasn't scared. I was like, oh my God, what are you here to tell me? Who died? What's going on? And then he vanished. Like I said, 3 times he turned and then he was gone. So that's the way it appeared to me. And what I was trying to get back to and originally say was, all of those myths that we've been taught about, we've seen Anne Boleyn walking around with her head under her arm, don't sound right and true to what I saw. And I'm not one to hyperbole and drama and all this stuff, but most people are. So upon seeing an apparition, I have a funny feeling that I don't know if Anne Boleyn's going to be happily walking around with her head under her arm. Just like Jay Sebring didn't appear with those striped pants that he was wearing when he died. He wasn't wearing the same shirt. He was wearing something totally devoid of what he was found dead in. And he didn't look anything like he did when he died because, I've seen the photographs firsthand that are still under lock and key at the LAPD in the archives. And he did not resemble that. So the question is where do these myths stand in the factual aspect of reality in the paranormal field? And when are we going to start to treat the truth as more important than the myths that we've been propagating for years and years and years to say, all right, let's cut the crap, kids. Enough with the drama and the stuff you've learned from television shows. The truth is, there isn't any of that to the paranormal. It's a lot of hoopla, hype, and drama and stuff that people like Charles Dickens wrote when he wrote his wonderful story, The Christmas Carol, which is really could have been called a ghost story for all intent and purposes. Again, it's that's literature, but not factual nonfiction. And ghosts aren't running around trying to scare us and can go rattling chains and go. "Ooh." That's not the point.
No, and,
Yeah,
and that's it. And then that's kind of one thing I discussed with my own parents, with my mom. She kind of mentioned we were talking about stuff like that, and she's like, "Well, like when I die, of course I'm gonna come back. I'll watch over you. Like I'll keep an eye on things. She's like, I'll try not to scare you." I'm like, "Mom, I'm sure you're not gonna scare me." Now I was mentioning before about me seeing things. I probably part of it's probably my own fault. I used to collect a lot of spirit dolls, and which that's probably not the best decision. I did, 6 or 7 years ago. It was just
doesn't
a hobby of
matter.
mine. It was a hobby of mine. I enjoyed doing it. It was something I really enjoyed doing. Um, and I think I stopped doing it after the point where I collected one doll, and the idea was it was hosting a spirit of a woman who was a nurse at a state penitentiary in New Mexico, and she was about in her 30s. The person said, and she said, yeah, like she was in her 30s, and I was like, okay, whatever. Like I believed in it, but I was like, okay, whatever. And but I enjoyed collecting this stuff, and I thought, oh, this is cool, just the idea of having it. So I remember one night, it was about 5 or 6 days after having it, and I didn't really sense anything. I was like, oh, this is, maybe I should stop doing this. This is wasting my time. And I was in bed, and my room was upstairs at the time, and I remember I had to have my door out all the time because if I left it closed, the cat can't get in. The cat would crawl at the door all night and
Yeah.
keep me up. So I had the door all open. We had the hallway light on, and I remember it was about maybe 2:30 in the morning. For some reason, I woke up. I don't know what it was. I had a really strange feeling, like something was in the room. And I looked, the cat's laying on the bed. I'm like, okay. And I kind of look over, like, what? And I kind of looked at the door, and I'm like, what? Like, at first I thought it was my mom, and I'm like, what? And then I really opened my eyes, and it was like a silhouette of a woman standing at my door, and I'm like, and at that time I kind of knew what it was, but I was so disoriented, I didn't know what, and she kind of looked like she had a bit of that 1930s kind of haircut going on, but I only could see the silhouette, but she was just standing there, and I'm like, uh, and I didn't know what to say. I was just kind of like, I was kind of almost like a feeling of like frozen in time, for example. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know, but it was almost like, and then for some reason, almost like I blinked and she was gone. And then after that, I had almost like a vivid dream, and I was in the dream. I was going into the kitchen for some reason, and she was in there, and I could kind of. It's hard to describe. It's like I couldn't see her face, but I could. But I just can't remember what she looked like. And she was standing in the kitchen. I said, what, like?" And I was like, "You're not from, like, why are you dressed like that?" And she couldn't explain. She couldn't tell me. And I said, "Well, what are you doing in my kitchen?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm just here to help anybody if they need it." And I'm like, uh, "What?" And she's just walking around like it was her kitchen. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "I'm just here to help if you need anything." And I woke up and I was sweating, and I woke up sweating, and I was like, almost like a dream when you feel like you're falling, you wake up and you feel like that. You wake up and you hit something. That's exactly how it felt. And after that, I had them for a while, and then just things. I think the energy in my room was getting too strong, and I had to. I explained to them. I said, "You're gonna go to a home," and explained everything to give that respect, to know that I'm not just throwing you in the trash kind of thing. So I gave them away to somebody and asked them, and I was like, "Oh, well, how's things going on?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, like I mean, um, same kind of thing going on." They said, but it's a little bit different. And yeah, I could go on with that story, but
Question about your home. What's the history of your home where you live?
Well, actually, well, I could really get into that. So I think our house was built in the 1970s. It's a
What
rancher.
what
Um,
was there before it? Do you have
I
any
think,
idea of the history of that area?
uh, well, I live in Chatham, Kent, so it was like where I live, it would have been 100 years ago, probably would have been wooded area, could have been grass, could have been farmland. Not even farmland, because people wouldn't have been living here 100 years ago. Not in the spot that I'm living at, more than likely.
Not
Because
Canadian
like,
Canadians,
yeah, so like where
but
they
like the tribes, the Native Americans or
it's
Native.
possible. It's very possible. Like say this is where I live, and Chatham, Kent. You have this part of the area where you have the Thames River, where the 1912 or 1812 War of 1812 was. There was a bit of skirmishes with Americans and the British at the time along that river. So there's actually a lot of history along that river. A lot of people report seeing soldiers and whatever. But in my area, there was a family that lived here before us. Um, Not really anything. Our house is always, and I think when you explain about the whole idea about your house having that being acting as like a portal, I wouldn't say ours has acted as a portal, but our house does seem like in an area where it there's not really explanation. It's not because something happened here. There's going to be ghosts. It doesn't necessarily have to be that.
No,
But there's been things like that we can't explain. My mom, she never told me this story for the longest time. Thank God I'm moving out of here soon. But she was telling me a story when they first moved in. They were having a lot of problems. Like a lot of picture frames would be slanted all the time. They had to reframe them. They always keep going slanted all the time. Well, they found out that the family that was living here before, the woman that was living here with her family, the husband was just, I'm not sure what his problem was. I can't remember if he was an alcoholic or just wasn't a good guy, but he really loved this house. But she kicked him out because he just was no good. Some people just have to be.
um,
Um, and I guess ever since then he finally died. So they think that maybe he could have came back here. But I've never really seen that issue. But I was a kid at the time. Kids are not going to understand any of that. But we've had things like I've seen my sister seen our grandfather here in the basement one time, shortly after he died. Um, I've heard my grandfather talk to me when I was a kid after he died. But those are, I think everybody kind of has those things that happen. Um, and just the common things that have gone in our home. Um, I think for sure, like I've heard things like hearing walking upstairs when there's no one home. Very clear walking. Um, I remember we had a punching bag in the basement, and I was working out, and parents I was maybe 15, and parents went out for dinner, and they told me, hey, we were gonna go here, and then we're gonna go out to the show after dinner, so we won't be back till late. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm working out, and I hit the bag, and I thought I heard someone upstairs. I'm like, oh, they must came home early. So I'm like, oh, and I had something I had to ask. So I checked my gloves, race upstairs, and there's no one up there. Okay. We did have a cat. We did have our Siamese at the time, but he was in the basement, so everything was fine that way. And I think after that, I went back down in the basement, was hitting the bag, and I heard again. I said, "Is it just me hitting the bag that's pull because it's attached to the ceiling, or attached to the ceiling, so it's shaking the ceiling?" So held it for a second. I could hear someone walk, and I said, "Okay, there's someone that broke in the house." So I'm going up there, and there's no one up there. The doors are locked, windows are locked. I'm like, what the fuck? And it was just that weird kind of like, "Yep, someone's here." And I was like, "Okay, it's my home. No one's here to hurt you." And after that, I don't, it doesn't really scare me that much. I've only been scared here once. And I'll never forget it. I was about 7, and actually, the room behind me is my room now. It used to be so many different things. it was a playroom when I was a kid. Technically, it's still, I guess, my father's. It's like a memorabilia room. He's got sports. He's got all my stuff in there, celebrities, everything. Now it acting as a temporary room until I move out. But at that time in that room, there used to be a closet, and I remember I just as a kid, and I heard something from the closet. It said something like, "Hey, you, come here," and I just bolted upstairs, and I'll never forget that. And ever since then, I never really been scared of anything. Just more curiosity would be the word. Um, and ever since then, I haven't really been scared of anything. It's you have to accept that it's just part of life. So
Well, as I was thinking when you were talking about the woman, I don't think she was connected at all to the dolls. I think she was connected, and I was suspicious about it, to the house. And I think I got confirmation that your place has got a lot of stuff. Oh boy, layers of history. Um, Obviously, you hear the footsteps. That's the old man, and that man was a son of a bitch, prick and a half, and an alcoholic and a half. The one that you were talking about earlier that you mentioned. That's what I kept on hearing. Um, and the woman is also part of the house's history, so to speak. That's why she said what she said. She was there to help.
and that's I'm
Because
not too sure. It could have been my mother's grandmother, um,
exactly. That's
because not that I would have ever known her, but
right.
there's a rocking chair that's beside me here in the basement, and it's ran through the Kirkland family for so many years. Um, it was actually my mother's grandmother's rocking chair. She actually told me a story about her rocking a rocking chair, holding her as a kid, because I think her grandmother died when my mom was quite young. Like, um, yeah, she didn't know her very well, but she remembered things like, I mean, who can't remember a grandparent taking care of you like that or doing significant things? So we do have quite a few things in our house that um, does have some significant or sentimental value, I guess. Um, and so it is very possible. My mother's side, the Kirklands, were very susceptible to the, I guess, paranormal. My aunt, my mom, my aunt, and myself and my cousin, we are all very open, I guess, very open to that. Especially my cousin. Um, she's heard a lot of things with my grandfather as well. Like we were very close with him, uh, and yeah, like yeah, yeah, it's yeah, we've always been kind of close with the paranormal, very open to it. My dad, I mean, he's a skeptic. He doesn't believe in it at all. He's like, oh no, Luke, I don't believe in this shit. Well, that will never forget. I'll never forget. He was working in the sump pump in the basement, and he heard someone walking upstairs, and everyone was gone for the weekend. And and he comes up and he's like, look, I swear to God, I thought I heard someone upstairs. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, we're here. He's like, I thought I heard someone walking up there. So I go up there, there's no one up there. I'm like, this is weird shit. I'm like, yeah, do you believe me? He's like, well, I don't know. I mean, it could just, I was working on some problem. I'm like, Dad, I'm fucking serious. Like, I've heard. And I remember he had to work on the sump pump again one time, and he swore he heard someone walking upstairs. So that's a common thing that we hear
Yeah.
sometimes is someone walking upstairs. Um, Actually, when you were talking throughout this whole podcast, there might have been a couple times you saw me. I was looking over. Um, if I could turn my camera, there's the stairs going upstairs, and it sounded like someone was walking on the stairs. So stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, they hear my voice and they go, "Oh, son of a bitch, it's that guy. We know who he is." I mean, that's I hate to say it. I'm kind of like the spirits. I've had the experience where the people said, and I was doing a meeting. I said, "Wait," goes, "I saw a woman manifest over your right shoulder and walk around you and walk around." I said, "Yeah, that's." And he goes, "Ah." It's like so. It doesn't surprise me that there's somebody there in your house, some people, spirits there that are like going. Oh, hey, it's that Omen character, eh? You hear him? He's talking. Let's get a listen to him. Come on down, yo, come on. So that's what, you got a lot of spirits there. The dolls, no. And you were talking about see, people have this thing about sentimental objects. No, 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 no. The strongest object is a human being. The sentimentality aside, it's the direct connection from that dead deceased decedent to that person who's still alive. There's still a connection, a very viable lifeline, so to speak. That's the reason why your grandmother's there. It has nothing to do with the rocking chair. Yeah, that was hers. But the idea that that this watch that I own, any more than this lighter that I own, is going to become somehow possessed because this is one of my favorite watches, and when I die, I'm going to be somehow attached to this. Might have had 150 watches by the time I died through my lifetime that I've owned.
Right.
And they were favorites when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult, I don't have them anymore. My point is it's a stupid type of a myth again, that one object of all the millions of objects that we might have possessed in our lifetime is going to somehow become possessed. And that one object is the one. It's like, well, people don't like to use what I use, which is called common sense application. Meaning, if you're going to say that it's this object is possessed, how come not this book that I just touched? How come not this speaker? How come not the dishes, the silverware, the razor blade, my toothbrush, my brush, my comb? Why wouldn't those become as possessed? If you say, but that was your favorite. So what if I have 100 different favorite objects? Are you going to tell me that my spirit, when I die, is going to split up into 100 different objects? But you're going to say that specific object that you hold 100 years after this person died is possessed because it was their doll. Really? No, because the human mind wants to make the connection that it looks like a human. It's analogous to, and amorphic like a human being. It's this and that. And it's like, something. Here's an example. Just because this telephone is shaped like a skull,
pretty freaking cool,
does not mean that this is going to become possessed any more than another object made out of the same plastic, because the shape is of a skull and this one's of a cup. This one shouldn't be any more possessed than this. Because why? Because they're both made out of plastic and I held both of them? That could have been my favorite freaking cup. Seriously, I mean, let's be honest here. I'm a diehard UCLA fan, okay? Who's to say that this isn't my favorite freaking cup? And that's where my soul is going. It's like the stupidity that people exert and try to create a dynamic in people that are stupid, pardon my French, people that are willing to be led to lambs to the slaughter to be sold. This haunted object will do so, but make no bones about it. That an object in the shape of a human skull will not become possessed because it's plastic shaped like a human skull, because that's what your identification is. It's a human skull. This can become possessed more easily than a comb or a brush. No, that's not how it works. And I started to think about that, saying, that one doll. What if that person had 100 dolls? But you don't know about the 100 dolls, and they're scattered across the globe. And each one of those had this intrinsic connection to that little girl or little boy who owned it then and who's no longer alive. It's preposterous. It's what we do as human beings. It's like this haunted doll. Why is it? Because it's a doll and it looks like a human being. My hubcaps could be haunted, for God's sakes. Again, you wouldn't know that unless you knew the backstory of who I was, and I was and if that person or that person was when they were alive, and that might have been, they might have been an auto aficionado, and they have an old Rolls-Royce hubcap from 1925. You don't know that that's not something that was intrinsically of value to that person and of connection to them. But it could be haunted, but you don't know it. See what I'm saying? It's like, people like to draw connections from things that are out there and say, this is this, this is this, this is this. It's like, you don't know. You're assuming. We all love to assume that because somebody owns something. I mean, I've got Jack Johnson's hat from 1914 here. So what? He owned he owned at least 100 hats in his lifetime because he was a clothes horse. He loved high fashion. So the idea that that one hat of all those is going to be haunted is like, a presumptuous assumption made on what? Ghosts want to do what they want to do. They don't go where you tell them to go. They do what they want to do. And that's the thing about spirits. You're going to assign them to be haunted to a wallet or to, I got news for you. You touched your credit card more than anything. Would John Wayne's MasterCard, if you had it, be more haunted than anything else because he used it constantly? He was constantly paying for stuff. I just don't see this rationale that people don't try to say, something that makes sense, David. It's kind of hard to assume that, one object of thousands or objects you've had in your lifetime that you had. Oh, but you're going to hear the story that was created by somebody who didn't know the person, who's telling you the story to sell you the haunted object, that it was Jessie Mandrake's only doll, and she loved it so much, and she died in the crib with this at the age of 5 years old, and therefore it's haunted. Do they know that story is real or not? It's created to sell the object.
Right.
That's what I'm saying to you. A lot of these stories come out with good intentions, but hardly can you ever prove that story is true because there's no gosh darn, it's not written down in a logbook and handed off with the doll. People create those stories.
Right.
That's why I have a difficult time with it. And I've had people bring stuff that was supposedly haunted objects to the house. We waited for hours and hours for something to happen. Somebody brought a 19th century wooden spirit board that was handmade on the 3/4 inch plywood or a piece of wood that was 3/4 inch wood, and it looked like the Ouija board. Nothing happened. The whole night we played with it, and I was thinking, now that's it's an antique upon antiques, and you could tell it was an old antique, but nothing happened. And I have problems when people scream and yell at me that you have a 8 foot by 5 foot rug of a Ouija board. And on top of it, a friend of mine who's an artist created a 3 foot table that is shaped like a Ouija board planchette. And I took the pegs off the end of the legs and put rollers on it so you could roller the Ouija board planchette around.
That's pretty cool.
And somebody said, oh, you shouldn't do that. It opens a portal. And I go, it's a freaking table, lady. You can't. I've never once tried to put my hands on it and use it as a Ouija board. And the one time we took a photo op with Nick Roth 4 years ago and Katrina Weidman and James Oster there, it didn't move on its own. So come on. I mean, God, the idea that these gadgets or toys can really bring in focals to spirits. I said, no, but you yourself can do that with a glass and a few friends by using it as a focal point to concentrate your energy onto, which is what the Ouija board is. It's a tool to do something. It on its own cannot do shit.
Yeah.
It's only supposed to bring those aforementioned individuals that are partaking in the Ouija board session to bring their attention and focus into one pinpoint area to try to manifest some activity. It on its own can do no harm and nothing. It's like a jack for a car jack. Until you start using it, it can't do anything. It requires human interaction to facilitate the job that you are asking it to do. But until somebody takes the stick, the pole into the jack stand, starts jacking that jack up, the jack is nothing more than a device that can be used, but until it's used, it's inert. Same with a Ouija board. A Ouija board in a box is not going to conjure up spirits. It just doesn't work like that.
Right. But yeah, I'd love to keep asking more. But we're coming up on time here, and
time? There's no such thing as time in space. That's man-made. I'm kidding.
But no, I just I got something going on here pretty soon, so I just want to thank you, David, for coming on my podcast. I guess I gotta ask, where if we're talking to the viewers, where can they find your website?
Well, here's the information you guys can read. This is for the book, ghostofceliadrive.com. And then you can go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/David Oman. Hope that's clear to you guys. You can read that. Also, you can go to The Omen House Something I didn't mention, which is coming up on the 51st anniversary weekend, August 7th through 9th. We are in plans and preparing for the first, and what was we call it, the first Oman House paranormal investigation live stream for 3 days and 3 nights, 24 hours a day. It's not up yet on the website, but you can go to theomanhouse.com, and by Friday it'll be up, and there'll be tickets. It'll be $10 to get the package for 3 days. We'll have paranormal investigators here. We'll have people streaming in or zooming in with their interviews. We'll have people here who will be interviewing. We're going to be doing a paranormal investigation on all 3 nights, which will be this Friday night, the 7th, Saturday night, August 8th, and Sunday night, August 9th. Should be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that based upon what they did with the Conjuring House event this past May, I think people will be much more happy and satisfied with this event and really be blown away by what we're going to put together for you all. Going to have some footage and interviews with Lance Henriksen, discussing the murders and his experience up here on Cielo Drive during the making of the movie. And like I said, it'll be a hoot. I'm looking forward to it. And I think that because of what we're all going through with this pandemic, that in 4 weeks, a lot of people are going to be more in than out. And this will give them a great opportunity to be able to hang out, talk to me and talk to other people. And it'll be totally interactive. We'll have a chat room. The moderator will be taking questions off the chat room and posing them to us live. And it'll be a fun experience. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually getting kind of giddy as we're getting closer to it, going, this is going to be one hell of an event. And I get a kick out of doing crazy events and sharing with people and having the possibility of people from across the world, chiming in and watching it and, giving them the true story and the insights into the paranormal, where everybody else is playing this drama card. And it just don't, to quote Damon Wayans, homie, don't play that way. I just don't believe in that. I believe in giving you the truth and demythologizing that which is breeding fear and uncertainty in your lives. Because that's the way to live, is not to live in a fear base, but to know what you know and accept that which you don't. And live with it and be happy with it. So again, it's been a pleasure being on your show today. And call me back when you want me to back on. I'll be happy to be back on, and we won't talk politics a drop.
Absolutely. But okay, David. We'll talk soon then, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. So much. And again, go to ghostsofcielodrive.com to get a copy of this crazy ass book of mine. That's right, Ghosts of Cielo Drive: The Afterlife of Sharon Tate and the Spirits of the Oman House. Again, it's been a pleasure being on your show. Take care of yourself and stay clear of the virus, is all I can say.
Yes, I will stay safe, and you as well.
Thank you very much. Pleasure being on your show.